Welcome to Keep What You Earn, a show for entrepreneurs and business owners who want to scale and build enterprise value without making costly mistakes. I'm your host, Shannon. I'm a CFO and CPA who left a career serving Fortune 50 companies in Wall Street to help business owners just like you make life-changing wealth with your business. These episodes are meant to be super tactical and actionable, but please remember, consult your own financial professional before you implement anything you learn in this podcast. Now, if you'd be interested in working with us to do so, check out the show notes for more information about our company, Keep What You Earn Co. All right, let's start the show. Hey, welcome back to the show. Today, I'm excited to introduce you to our guest, Ricky Shockley. Now, he is the owner of Med Spa Magic Marketing, and he is a digital marketing professional, been one for over a decade, helping dozens of small business owners improve their search rankings, generate consistent leads from Google Ads, implement meta ad strategies, and just overall handling the marketing. He also does email marketing and text message marketing programs, and he is all about staying in constant contact with your database. He serves mostly med spas, but today on the show, we're going to be talking a little bit more about different marketing strategies that you can implement in your business, no matter what you typically offer for a service. And we're going to be talking about why gut-based marketing really doesn't work and where you should be using data as your friend in order to drive your strategy. So with that, let's dive in and hear more from Ricky. Hey, Ricky, welcome to the show.
Hey, Shannon, thanks so much for having me. Excited to be here.
I'm excited to have you. So tell us a little bit more about who you are so we can get started and dive into all the marketing stuff.
Yeah, short version is I'm a digital marketing consultant, a marketing strategist. I've been working with small businesses, e-commerce stores, pretty much every type of business you can think of since I started in the space in 2011, 2012. Currently own an agency called Med Spa Magic Marketing. We work with med spas all over the country, but I've also coached and consulted other agencies. So hopefully bringing a depth of knowledge and a breadth of knowledge here on all things marketing.
Yes. And I think that marketing is one of those things where, I mean, for me personally, marketing makes me feel like my clients feel. Like it's a little overwhelming. It's a little bit of a language I don't speak. I know enough to be dangerous, but like, hey, I don't really know how all this stuff works in the machine in the background. I just know like maybe if it's working or not. So I can see why a lot of business owners kind of try to go with their gut on a lot of marketing stuff and they try to operate from emotion, operate from, all of these other factors. But I think one point that we were discussing, even on your show, was like, you have to know the numbers behind it. You have to have actual real data behind it. So that's what I want to lean into today and talk about like the major things that you should be looking at in your marketing as well.
Yeah, and I think it is really dangerous to go off like anecdotes and perception. I think sometimes what happens is your business is succeeding, but your marketing can actually stink. Like you're growing organically, there's good word of mouth, and then you think your marketing is working because the business is growing. And the opposite can be true. I've seen the opposite be true where the marketing's actually working pretty well, maybe specific initiatives like your Facebook ads or your Google ads, but you have all these other things in the business that are dropping off. So your business is down 15%. You're blaming marketing when maybe the counterfactual there is that in an alternate universe, you'd be down 40 or 50% if it wasn't for marketing carrying additional weight. So I think knowing the numbers, especially if you're doing direct response, is really important and not going off gut and feel, because that gut and feel can be wrong way more than you think.
I think you're right too on the front that marketing must be working if revenue's going up. And it's not necessarily because you could be getting, organic referrals, you could be getting upsells from existing customers and actually no new people in the door. And you have to really like, it's so key, I think, and you can tell me if you agree or not. I say limit the types of marketing you're doing so you can get good feedback or at least be capturing where people are coming from so you can limit your focus into the areas that are working.
Yeah, I think that's actually a great takeaway, especially for probably a lot of your listeners. If you're a small business owner, you probably can't afford the time or money to do every single thing that you want to do. Like you maybe can't afford Facebook, Instagram ads and content marketing and SEO and Google ads and print and all the other things that you could be doing. So I think you have to understand the opportunity cost of your dollars and you have to figure out what is the thing most likely to generate the business result I'm trying to achieve. And I do think diversification long term is good, but being a little bit narrow in terms of your focus to things that are most likely to generate a result is really important. Like when we coach our clients, we're a little unorthodox in the sense that I don't want to come out of the gate and tell you, here's everything that you can possibly do. Let's do it. It's where can we start with a narrow focus that we think is the best use of those ad dollars? I use the money printing machine example here. If I've got a machine that every dollar I put in prints 5, let's call that marketing strategy A. And then marketing strategy B, every dollar I put in, I get 3. Well, I want to put as many dollars into the $5 machine as I can before I diversify into the $3 machine. So yeah, I totally agree with that.
Yeah, but I feel like a lot of business owners have like this machine where if they put one in, they get 3 back. And then they go, well, if I did that with that machine, then I should try another machine. And it's such a funny logic because it's going like, hey, that machine worked. Let's do it again on a different one. And I use the example of if you go to Vegas and one slot machine continues to win for you, why would you get up? Why would you walk away? You
Exactly
know,
right. Yeah. Until you start to see diminishing returns. Yeah. So we kind of use like diminishing returns as the, hey, like we're pretty much pumping all of those dollars into the machine that now the $1 machine that prints 5 is the $1 machine that prints 4. Is there something else that maybe we could do that goes back to printing 5 with the additional dollars? And yeah, I
mhm.
totally agree. I think that's a good way to think about it.
Yeah, and what are some of the metrics? Because, like I talk about ROAS with clients and we talk about other things like that and CAC. For those who maybe aren't familiar with some of the lingo around marketing, what are some of the core metrics that you can look at that tells you if you're performing or not?
Yeah, I think to boil this down very simply, it's how much does it cost to acquire a customer? How much money do you make from that customer over a specific duration? So, like, sometimes we look at that in a 24-month window. People use lifetime value a lot. So, the problem with lifetime value is it doesn't explain potential cash flow implications. So, I mentioned now I work with a lot of med spas. So, I think if you're in a recurring revenue service model, this will resonate. So, even if you're a pest control company, HVAC, whatever that is, you have this certain cost to acquire a client. Let's just say it's $1,000 to acquire a client, and the lifetime value of that client is $10,000. In a simplistic perspective, then you're making a 10x return on ad spend, right? 1,000 in, $10,000 made. But if that comes over a long period of time in a series of like $300 to $500 visits, then you might be cash flow negative the first month you acquire the client. And so you have to understand the cash flow pressures as well. So I would kind of put some sort of a timeline on how you measure the difference between money in, customer acquisition, or sorry, money in is your investment, customer acquisition cost, how much you pay to acquire the client, and how much money you make from that client over the duration of either that client being like a customer for 2 years. I always like to look at initial visit revenue, no matter what. So how much do you make on the initial project or the initial session? Because that explains your cash flow considerations. You need to know if you lose money to acquire the client in the hopes that you make money on recurring service or retention as well. Alex Hormozy talks about this. I forget what his acronym is. So instead of lifetime value, he talks about basically your
Lifetime
gross
gross
profit. How
profit.
much
Yep.
exactly? Yeah, how much money are you actually making in terms of margin on that, not just revenue? Because that can be dangerous too. If you're selling a $10,000 service, but you only make actually $1,000 in margin on that, and you spent $1,000 to acquire a client, at best you're breaking even. So that's a problem too. But yeah, I think really like you have to know how much you pay to acquire a client, what the person spends with you initially, and then over some sort of time horizon, how much does the typical client spend with you over, I don't know, 12, 24 months or beyond?
Yeah. And I would also be looking at, all the clients you currently have, especially the ones that you particularly like or maybe are recurring or long standing, and say, where do they come from? And going back to that well all the time and saying, okay, why did they come from there? How did they find me? And then helping that narrow the focus as well. The cost to acquire a customer, I agree with. And what also makes it tricky is you have the cost to acquire, but then you also have the horizon in which you're in that sort of, I call it the courting zone, where if you have a service, let's just say it's like mine, CFO services, nobody's buying it off of an Instagram post. Like, sorry, Shan. Like, very little. And I couldn't probably run. I mean, one could argue that I could run meta ads and I could enroll CFO clients like that, but definitely not with one click. Definitely not without a significant amount of time to build trust.
Yeah.
Definitely not without a process that actually incurs my time and additional funds to be able to do it. For example, we do a demo for our sales calls. So, like, now I have the cost of use of the tool to go do that. So you actually have to be thinking about not only the cost to acquire from like a, transactional meta ads or something like that, but also what is it taking in terms of your energy and time in that process of courting them.
Yeah, for sure. And I think like I don't want to look over this cost of customer acquisition metric, like factor in the time and the money that it takes. I think so many people listening to this, they're gonna have no idea what that number is, like no clue what
Exactly.
it cost them to. And sometimes that's hard to nail down. If you're doing stuff that is a little bit more organic, um, and it's got a multitude of touch points, And it can be a little bit harder to track. But if you have like a marketing agency or you're spending money on Google ads or Facebook, Instagram ads in a direct response style, you should really know your customer acquisition cost. That's like the first data point that starts to allow you to have confidence that your marketing is probably serving as an investment and not an expense. If marketing is an expense, and I think so many people are stuck in that mindset too, and you hear this when you talk about marketing budgets. Oh, I don't want to spend that much. Well, if marketing is an investment, the question should be, this is awesome. How much money can I put into this machine that prints me back 3, 4, 5x? It's when people don't have the confidence that that's happening that they're really stuck in the mentality that marketing is an expense. And if it truly is, shouldn't be doing it in the first place.
Yeah, I agree. And what I think also people conflate is I think there's marketing and then I think there's reputation. And I think they're actually different things to some extent. I think with we actually treat marketing like, okay, there's the active pursuit of customer acquisition, right?
Yeah.
So that could be prospecting, that could be marketing, that could be pushing out ads, right? Actively advertising and saying, come here, go, come look at me, versus presenting yourself where if someone walks by, you know what I mean? It's kind of the person screaming on the street with, like, the banner that's just like, come here," versus
Yeah.
having a beautiful storefront. And I think people conflate active marketing with, like, "But my website looks great, and, my brand management and my fonts and colors are under control, like, why is no one showing up?" You know what I mean? And there's a bit of the difference between sort of brand and reputation management, making sure you've got all that lined up, like good reviews and things like that. But if you don't do anything with them, if you don't actually go out there and project yourself out there, then I don't believe you're really marketing.
Yeah. I think that if you build it, they will come mentalities. It's like having a beautiful storefront in the middle of an open field.
Mhm.
And again, I think there's enormous value in that. I don't think marketing. I always say marketing is fuel on the fire of an already successful business. If you don't have like a good reputation, you're not serving your clients well, you're not providing a good value proposition, if you're not actually positioned to be a good option for the product or service that you're selling, then I would argue your marketing is probably doomed to fail. It's like putting a band-aid on the
Yeah.
side of a sinking ship. So, marketing, advertising, any of these things that entail, hey, I want to make sure more people know what I do and that they have a compelling reason to do business with me. That works really well when you have the goods. When you don't have the goods, it doesn't really work. I think that's the other
Yeah.
thing is like people think that marketing is going to be their end all be all solution when they have like inherent business problems. And those business problems have to get solved before your marketing problems can do anything fruitful.
Yeah, and I think that also corresponds too to when you go into paid ads, that if the organic isn't working, then, like, maybe the paid isn't the right approach necessarily. You have to figure out the good messaging. You have to make sure that you're basically not leaning too heavily into paid ads too soon as well. What's your advice on that?
Yeah, I think it goes back to if you don't have the foundation in place, the paid ads aren't going to work. So I always tell people, again, I'm just using the med spa example because it's top of
Yep,
mind for me. I think everybody has a
right.
version of this. People that come in from a Google ad or a Facebook ad, for our clients now, I assume everybody's going to 3 places. They're looking at your website, your Google reviews, and your social media accounts. For them, it's Instagram, but your business has a version of this. They might look at your Facebook page, go read, let's just say Google reviews and website, especially for service businesses, are at the forefront. So you can advertise all day, get people interested in whatever it is that you're offering, but most savvy consumers are going to do a little bit more research. And if that foundation isn't in place, you're not going to give them a compelling reason to choose you over the alternative. So yeah, if that stuff's not there, like I said, the paid ads, they're quite literally like putting a band-aid on the side of a sinking ship. It's just not going to work. We see that all the time. Like I've got clients that they've got a really, really good reputation. Everybody already knows them. And then they start running ads and it's like demand capture is like on steroids. They're just flooded with business because they already have such a good reputation. People already know who they are. They're already kind of interested in doing business with them. And now they're just capitalizing on it. If you've got a
Yep.
shaky reputation, you're new to town, people don't know, like, and trust you, and when they do research search you, it's hard to feel confident about the decision. It's not going to make a difference.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of overwhelm with marketing because, okay, I'm not ready to do paid ads yet, but I'm also not ready to put my life on Instagram and do organic every single day and go so hard on it. And I think we're in an environment where the expectations have risen in terms of how you show up on social media, like what you're capable of doing in order to be seen and heard. What are some of your advice on, organic content marketing, the types of things people should be focused on, and how to make it more manageable if you're not yet in the paid ad space?
Yeah, I think I've got a little bit of a controversial take on this, to be honest. So my
Okay.
argument would be if you have the foundation in place and you have the budget, paid ads are the fastest way to generate a result. Like you can, if you've got things dialed in, you can launch Google ads or Facebook, Instagram ads for customer acquisition. And by the end of the week, you'd be booking sales, appointments, whatever that is. On the organic side, I think there are some challenges there, but it really depends on the business type. So if we're talking about like social media, YouTube, Shannon, would this be for mostly like local businesses, national businesses? Because to
Mhm.
me, there's a major distinction between the two.
Yeah, I actually want to hear your take on both. Like, if you are a local brick and mortar that's seeking local business versus maybe a virtual business that can serve anyone nationally.
All right, I'll get my soapbox out. So this is a topic like I'm super passionate about. I wrote an article about. I went to the HubSpot conference. So they're the founders of the term inbound marketing
Yep.
over a decade ago, and this has stuck with me. And I've been kind of like saying this to as many people that will listen as possible. And I understand this is kind of counter to what the traditional agency will tell you. If you're a national business, organic marketing, content creation, social media activity, those things, if they're done well, can make a major difference. For our business, for example, most of my clients find us on YouTube or our podcast. So, as a national business that can serve people all over the country or all over the world, it's a phenomenal tool to generate free publicity, free awareness that can directly correlate to a business benefit. You're able to demonstrate expertise, develop that know, like, and trust element, build an audience. And if you build an audience, certain percentage of those people are going to buy from you.
Right.
So I would say also, if you're trying to do this for business, it's not the vanity metrics that matter, like views or being silly or going viral. It's attracting the right audience of people that actually have the opportunity to do business with you or refer business. So great tool. Things like blogs, content marketing, all that stuff works really well for national businesses if done correctly. For local businesses, I think it can be a real challenge because you're not attempting to go viral. It's this very small segment of your local market that has the opportunity to do business with you. If you're creating content on your website, something like informational content, like a blog, you have a few problems with that. And I know a lot of businesses and SEO companies push this, but as a local business, if you're blogging, one is whatever you're blogging about has probably already been written by dozens, if not hundreds, of more authoritative sites that are going to outrank you. So if you're doing it for SEO specifically, those things are generally not going to rank. They're not even going to be found. They're not helping you earn inbound links, meaning other websites aren't like referencing or linking to them, boosting your search rankings as a result. And even if you get lucky enough for one of those niche blog posts to rank, it probably doesn't generate a business benefit. I had a client, they're an audiology practice in Maryland, and their SEO company was showing them this climbing organic search traffic month over month. And when I looked at the data, a lot of it was coming through one blog post, and it was how do piercings affect your hearing? They ranked like number one or number two on Google for that term nationwide. Almost none, I think virtually none of the traffic that had come through that blog post was in their county. And in that case, that searcher, that didn't even map to the person that needs a hearing aid. So it's just a total miss from my perspective. Now, I will say, assume no matter what you're doing, people are going to research your business. So they're going to want to scroll Facebook or Instagram. They're going to want to go to your website. So my contention would be focus your content marketing and your organic initiatives on the people that are the fence sitters that are thinking about doing business with you. Make those people feel as comfortable and confident as possible pulling the trigger over the alternatives that they have.
I totally agree with that. And especially with how you're talking about more of a narrow, it sounds so funny because you think that like with a narrow focus of clientele geographically, that, "Oh, well, my content will be more likely to reach them anyway." No, it won't, because the algorithm is so warped now that, like, not necessarily. And also, the more specific you can get, I believe, with meta ads, with in terms of who you're looking for, where they are, and all the demographics, the more likely you are to actually hit them. So I would actually argue on top of what you're saying and go even further with it and say, even if you are a national brand or virtual brand like myself, it's still a good idea to probably pick a few core cities and pick a few messages that you want to get out there that where your clients are actually at, where your ideal clients will be, and pick a few targets to hit and see if you actually strike gold there.
Yeah, and the specificity, especially like if even at a local level. Again, if
Yeah,
you want to use there's a way to use content marketing and organic content creation effectively.
right.
Seth Godin has this example of if you're the local realtor, don't write a blog about like house purchasing trends in America 2025. Like that, if you write it for your city, maybe that's interesting. That's an angle, right? Most businesses don't have that luxury. Like if I'm I don't know, a plumber, and I'm trying to figure out how to fix a pipe leak, and I write a blog post about how to fix a pipe leak, nobody is putting a location-based intent on that search. They're just searching, my sink is leaking, it's coming from below, like, what am I supposed to do? And they're looking for information. Real
Right.
estate might be the example where people actually have a local intent behind a search, so the content can make sense. But Seth Godin talks about basically a realtor becoming the go-to source for sports stories on the local high school team. Like, be the media outlet for the local high school sports team. Now your name is out there. You're building an audience of people that actually have the potential to do business with you that's hyper localized. The other thing that you can do is if you're creating content that you think is educational that could lead people to having a little bit more of a know, like, and trust factor toward, or, feel toward you or your brand, then you have to be strategic with how you get that in front of those people. And that's where things like boosting posts on Facebook and Instagram can make sense. So that content isn't just sitting there for no one to see. It's constantly in the news feeds of your local market.
Yeah, I love that idea. I love the example you used about the local sports teams because it doesn't always have to be like selling your services. It doesn't always have to be
Exactly.
direct promotion. It can be simply thinking about your customer and going, what are they looking for right now? What are they seeking out? And maybe there's an intersection with your interests as well. And you can say, look, I'll just be the one that does this, or I'll be the one that shows up and delivers this type of content. And it doesn't even have to be all digital. You can also just be the person who shows up to the town picnic, the person who shows up to volunteer. All of those things, like it is reputation building and it is marketing, whether you know it or not, is how you show up
Yeah.
in your community wherever your local customers are, especially if you're local. But this also translates to national too. It's actually showing up in those Facebook groups, it's actually delivering value, it's being really specific about who you serve. And I truly believe in the power of niching down, which is something that we both just talked about, and at least narrowing the types of people you want to work with while also not maybe closing yourself off to others unless you're somehow limited geographically. But talk to me about your idea of telling folks to niche down, because I know you work with a lot of clinical practices, so do we.
Yeah.
And I know that they're geographically bound, but can they go even further with that in terms of the types of people that they're reaching out to?
Yeah, I think so. Real quick to wrap the content discussion, one of my favorite books on that
Yeah.
topic is Epic Content Marketing by Joe Pulizzi. And it's this idea of like building and monetizing an audience, but thinking about this as a almost, if you're going to go this route, this thing is a media entity that lives alongside your business as its own standalone thing. You can sell advertise, you can do all sorts of things if you build an audience. I have a guy I watch on YouTube. He was a fitness YouTuber. He started a candy brand and sold the candy brand to Hershey's for like $50 million.
Wow.
So there's all sorts of ways to monetize an audience, and yeah, that's a really, really, really good book. Sorry, Shannon, what was the last question? I know I sidetracked it
No, we're
there.
talking about niching down and how we can
Pushing down, yeah,
actually leverage it. Yeah, and not just national, not just global, but like
yeah,
saying, oh, you have to pick an industry and go in there, whatever. But you can also niche down within your community. You can actually niche down the types of customers you want to serve. Even like your niche doesn't have to be geographic. It can actually go even more specific.
yeah. I think one of the biggest challenges for especially local businesses, especially service businesses, is they can be very commoditized. It's very hard to actually differentiate. So by niching down and speaking to a very specific segment of the audience, adding specificity to your marketing message allows you to gives you the opportunity to resonate with those people at a level that your competitors won't. So you can do that all sorts of different ways. You can do that just with your personality, right? Like your personality, your belief system, your values, putting those things in your business. If people align with you on those things, they're going to want to do business with you. That'll be the tiebreaker for you. And like we've done, Shannon, like speaking to a specific audience, if I'm a marketing agency and I just say, hey, we're really good at Google ads, it's really hard to connect. There are a bajillion people saying I'm really good at Google ads. If I say, hey, we're really good at Google ads for medical practices, a little better, but now there's still a bajillion different versions of medical practices. But if we're the people that can really help you with Google ads for your med spa, now that competition pool of people that are specifically talking to that audience directly is much smaller. So again, you still have to be creative. You still have to find all the bells and whistles that help you stand apart from your competition. But any amount of specificity in your marketing message where you can resonate with a specific segment of your audience at a higher level, I think is beneficial for sure. So many of us think we're doing so at the exclusion of the other people that we can serve. There's certain businesses, I think you can do this where you're resonating with that audience without, like you said, Shannon, excluding the others. So as a med spa, for example, if you really are trying to be like, hey, I'm trying to resonate with the working moms who have kids that are in their like mid 30s and 40s that are going through very similar life experiences. And a lot of your storytelling on Facebook and social media and your website aligns with that. You're going to attract those people at a higher level, but you're also not going to do so at the exclusion of like the 62-year-old retired woman who still wants the service. So I think you can do that carefully where you're not doing it to the exclusion of the other groups, unless you really want to lean into it and you know that by nature. So just think about politics. If people will lean really into political messaging in their marketing, you see all sorts of companies that do this on one side or the other. You're intentionally going, I understand I'm going to turn off half the people, but I'm going to be significantly more attractive to the other half.
Yeah, that's true. And but you can also modify channels. So let's use your example of the 30 to 40-year-old woman versus the 60 plus. Like you're probably not sending Instagram ads to the 60 plus, but you could do Instagram ads to the 30 to 40, but you also have to know what customer is watching what channel. And then you
Yeah,
could do mailers or you could do email or you could do something else for the like the older generation. You really have to know your customer really well and know where they're finding you to be able to understand all the different channels that will work. And just to say you want, say, the 30 to 40-year-old doesn't mean you don't want somebody else. Like you can,
exactly.
somebody once told me that just because I like vanilla doesn't mean I don't like chocolate.
Yep.
So it's basically, I like, I want to attract these things. I would order this, but I wouldn't say no to this. So we have to be really careful about like letting our head get in the way of finding those types of gold mines in marketing because we limit ourselves by the fact that we're trying to serve everybody. And then by virtue of that, serve no one because no one can relate to your message. I think it's just so true.
For sure. And you can segment that, like you said, with different marketing messages. I could run a Facebook, if I'm a mortgage broker, I could run Facebook ads to the boomer generation with a specific marketing message that's going to get them to hopefully refinance. And if I'm trying to help first time home buyers, maybe I go to Instagram and I've got a message that's a little bit more tailored to that audience. And then I'm using the targeting options that are native. So you don't even have to do this overall as like a blanket part of your messaging. You can do this in channel specific ways.
Yeah, and one thing I do wanna talk to you about, and this might be kind of like a little sidebar pivot thing, but we talked about this when I was on your show a little bit when we were chatting, and one of the things that came up was we were talking about sort of promotions and offers and going back to this idea of like LTV and things like that. The block that a lot of people have with discounting their services, because this goes in line with, marketing and with how you promote is a lot of the ways that people can bring people in, especially if you have like a local brick and mortar practice, is discounts, promotions, things like that. But there's this huge hesitation or perception of devaluing. So I want to talk about the value of your services and how to convey that through your marketing, but also this sort of block that we talked about before.
Yeah, and I think the financial part of this analysis is the most important part. If you're
Mhm.
doing pool installs, your customers are one and done. So if you're talking about discounting strategies, maybe it doesn't make sense. Now you're just trying to figure out how do I create the biggest gap between how much it costs me to sell a pool and how much I sell the pool for. So you can figure out like maybe that does if you run a promo where you're doing like $3,000 off pool installs in the summers, but it lowers your customer acquisition cost at a rate that offsets the discount, then it makes sense to do. For businesses that rely on recurring revenue and retention, so I'll use a restaurant as an example. I think you're missing a major opportunity to lower your customer acquisition cost and increase your chances to demonstrate your value through experience by not using some sort of incentive. So if your business relies on recurring revenue and retention, my contention, one of my favorite quotes in marketing is from a book called The Advertising Effect by Adam Ferrier. And the quote is action changes attitude faster than attitude changes action. Traditionally in marketing, we're trying to use our marketing message to convince people to like us enough to do business with us. The easiest way to convince people to like us to do business with us is to get them to experience our product or service. I always ask on my sales calls, what's your favorite restaurant? No one will ever name their favorite restaurant in their town when it's a place they haven't been to. So again, perception is best created through experience, and you're going to lower your cost of customer acquisition and give the opportunity to demonstrate your value at higher volumes by doing that, even in luxury markets and luxury industries. So I think it's not about cheapening your brand. It's about having the opportunity to demonstrate your value.
I agree. And I think it's about understanding, going back to your idea of lifetime value of a customer and knowing what you're willing to sacrifice in the short term to get the long term play on the customer. Because I
Yeah.
think a lot of people are very short sighted, where it's like, but I'm basically doing this service for free. I'm not going to make money on it. And then I go, well, or you could think of it as this is a small investment of my time to earn the relationship. I go, it's paying on the first date.
Yep.
That's all it is. It's you paying on the first date and saying, I would like to work with you ongoing, especially if you have a recurring service. I think your pool example is perfect where it's like that may not make sense, but if you are trying to get repeat customer buy-in, then you have to be willing to do something to incentivize.
Yeah, and there's this reciprocity principle. I was just reading Psychology of Persuasion, and he talks
Mhm.
about this in there, and I think this ties into that. Shannon, you do consults? Do you do like free consults in your business?
Yeah, of course.
So do we. So I get on calls with sales prospects. I spend 90 minutes giving away every single strategy. You know, how many people that if I try to coach them to do that, they would say, "Well, I charge $500 an hour for consulting. I'm not going to give it away. I want to get the customers that are willing to pay for it. I'll charge $750." Well, what you've just done is you've inserted a massive point of friction. And if you believe in what you sell, what you do, you should want every opportunity to demonstrate your value to the right prospects. Now, you can have filtering mechanisms. So you're spending that time ideally with people that you know are not just coming in that you're never going to see again. You can try to figure out how you can like find the balance between barriers that allow you to see the right people. But if you feel like you're seeing enough of the right people, even if for every 10 people you're seeing 6 right people, I would argue all day it's worth doing that to have the opportunity to prove your value.
I agree. And I mean, like, if this podcast is an example of it too. Like, we do the free consults, but also I am completely an open book on here, sharing all of the tip
Yeah.
strategies, the things that are working on here every single week. You know, and it's not like all in the interest of marketing. It actually is like in the interest of, hey, this is what's going on. This is what the strategies we're seeing. This is how we can help you. And we're in the business of solving problems. That's the end of it. Like, we're in the business of solving problems. And here's the other thing. How many, I mean, like, look at ChatGPT for crying out loud. How many people can go on and say, get workout programs or go find workout programs through Pinterest or whatever and say, I found all these workouts. But you're not going to go do it without a trainer. Let's be real. Like, you're not
Yeah.
going to go do it without the accountability. So we rest on the fact that information is free and in abundance right now. The putting behind an information behind a paywall is so like, 2015.
Yeah, exactly. I think take the opportunity to demonstrate your value if you can. It most often works out. And again, the financial part of that is important. Like when I talk to clients, we've had clients that take like their offer price, their new patient promo. It goes from $200 and we're like, "Can you just bump this down to 150?" And they're like, "Oh my gosh, no, it's going to wreck my world. I don't want to take my promo from 200 to 150. Now I'm giving it away. I'm losing money." But what they don't realize is so many times they took $50 off the promo price, but now they lowered their customer acquisition cost from $250 to $150. So you're paying for this. I always say this, people don't pay attention to this part. You're paying for it on either side of the equation. So would you rather save $100 in acquisition cost in exchange for the 50 you gave on the discount? You're still $50 ahead now, and you're seeing a larger volume of patients, so you have more opportunities to demonstrate your value. So I would say, like, understand the math trade-off that you're making there. Everybody thinks that there's not an equal and opposite reaction happening when you make some of these decisions. And I know so often there's people that say what you want to hear, and if you say like never discount, you're cheapening your brand, you're attracting the wrong clients. That's exactly what people want to hear. It sounds good and it feels good, so people tend to lean into that. But I would argue that that analysis is completely void of the actual mathematical reality of marketing a business,
I would agree
at least in
because
many cases.
yeah, because it's more economics than it is just the plus and minus of the bank account. You have to be thinking about the opportunity cost. You have to be thinking about the equal and opposite reaction, if you will, of these types of things. You have to be thinking of the science behind it. And not everybody is into all of that. Not everybody kind of thinks about these things. They just want to get these tactical tips. And also, like you said, it sounds good and it's easy to follow to be like, don't discount. Okay.
Yeah.
And you have to understand though, like, how is that going to benefit or harm your business in particular? Which is why I think every business owner should invest some time in understanding their marketing to a certain extent. They don't have to know all of the inner workings and the metrics, but they should know exactly why they're doing what they're doing, what strategies are working, what their overall acquisition strategy is, and how it all kind of works in the machine together. Ricky, how does your company help with stuff like that? Like, where do you fall into that machine?
Yeah, I want to add one thing to that too. If
Yeah.
you don't understand as a business
Mhm.
owner the fundamentals of what you're hiring for, how do you expect to be able to audit that and have confidence in it? If I own an
Exactly.
HVAC company and I'm hiring HVAC technicians, but I have no idea how to fix anything, how do I know if they're any good? I think it's definitely worth taking the time to understand these things. And I know it's a pain in the butt. You're being pulled in a million different directions, but sometime in the next 6 to 12 months, set some time aside, find some resources that you trust, and get vaguely familiar with any of the marketing channels that you plan to activate and implement, because it'll give you confidence that you can at least oversee and audit the people that you're hiring. You don't want to just blindly trust with any of this stuff.
Mhm.
Yeah, sorry. So our business is Med Spa Magic Marketing. We serve now only med spas. We've been doing that since 2022, although we've been in business since 2012. We try to bring data-driven strategies that do exactly what I talked about. They create the maximum impact between money in and money out. We set up the systems and the processes to measure that, I think, paired with some of the best strategies in the industry. So that's what we do nowadays. We just serve med spas all over the United States, from Seattle and Miami and Boston and New York to Phoenix and LA.
Love it. Absolutely love it. And what has been probably one of the biggest things that, as you've niched down into the med spa area, what's would you say, if med spa owners are listening to this, is like the one maybe most impactful hinging point in turning their marketing around? Like one mental block or one factor that you've seen?
Yeah, I think we talked about them. So it's understanding your numbers so you can have confidence that
Mhm.
your marketing is an investment and not an expense. And then being singularly focused. If you're a newer business, especially, like, we tier things. So if you're under $100,000 a month in revenue, all we're going to do is Facebook and Instagram ads. After that, we'll diversify into Google ads. But going back to figure out, like, don't spread yourself thin. I think one of the other mistakes I see people make, especially if you're hiring an agency or outsourcing this, is I've seen people pay $3,000 in a service retainer and $600 a month on ads. I can show you the math around that. It is doomed to fail. If you're going to, you either have to do this on your own and learn it, and if you're ready to pay somebody else to do it, you have to understand your ratios, and you have to have a lot more money going toward the ad spend than the agency retainer for the math to make sense. So, like, understand the investment, understand the ratios, have a focused effort, don't spread yourself too thin, and know your numbers.
Absolutely love it. Ricky, thank you so much for coming on today. Really enjoyed our conversation.
Yeah, thanks, Shannon. It was awesome. Glad to join.
Okay, so if you've been listening to the show for a while, you know I love talking about profit and cash flow. But if you've mastered these things, the next level thing to be focused on is your customer value. If you have to constantly hustle to sell more and hit your revenue goals, it's important to think about how you can deliver more value, build retention, and maximize the lifetime profitability of every customer. When you invest in a power session, we're able to dive into your customer acquisition cost and determine some personalized strategies to decrease your costs and increase the lifetime value of your customers. Click the link in the show notes to learn more.